We're going to do things a little bit differently now. We're going to keep talking to our presidential correspondent, or one of our reporters that works so tirelessly on these stories, Tshepo Ikaneng, and we'll continue that into 8 o'clock. We've got our reporter, Griselda Lewis, who's on her way to the Saxon World residence where the Hawks are now currently raiding that Gupta compound. But we'll break out of this interview and get to Griselda when it happens. So when it comes to the media, presidential correspondents are probably the closest to a head of state. They are often the first in line to access sensitive information and break stories. Joining me now is my colleague, Tshepo Ikaneng, who has covered President Jacob Zuma for many, many years. And in fact, he was the one to break a very important story and may have changed the course of the way things have changed now. Good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Leon. Nice to see you.
You were quite the talking point on Twitter and came out on air saying that a deal and an agreement had been reached between President Jacob Zuma and the ANC. Elaborate on that, and then what happened after that?
Yes, I mean, I got a tip-off, it was around 2 p.m. on Monday, that from one of my closest sources who told me that things have moved because earlier in the morning, the president of the ANC, Sir Ramaphosa, met with the officials, and the official meeting was basically starting at around 2 o'clock. So I was able to get that information as early as that because there were kind of engagement that were continuing throughout the week, as we are well aware, including those visits to the president's official residence in Mahlamandlovu on a previous day, which was Sunday night. So I got that information, and around 3:30, after confirming it and just making sure that this person is not really selling me a fake story, he said, "You can go with it, I'll vouch for you." And it was a call that I had to make, and I consulted with my editor, Sophie Mukwena, to say, I have this kind of a story. Do you think we should go on air?
Yeah.
As you know, how energetic she was, she just dragged me in front of the cameras, and that's when I said on camera, to officially confirm that the deal has been struck, but the modalities of how it's going to be communicated was still a sticking point. That's what I mentioned at that particular time. And
then things started changing. The narrative started changing from there on, because then it was quiet, nothing happened. There was denials and locked doors, and then it just never happened. I mean, what do you think happened behind those closed doors then, once that news was out?
I mean, the news was out. I got frantic calls from many people. I mean, journalists, including people high up there and from security officials. People were like, where do you get this information? How do you verify that information? And then the tense moment, and the word got onto the conference because we were outside of the venue, and that was a beginning of a long day, including the lockdown that you saw overnight, where members of the NEC were not allowed to go out. Up until that time, you saw the motorcade of the president of the ANC, Sir Ramaphosa, going out to go and confer with President Zuma at Mahlamandlovu and coming back up until 3 a.m. And then that's when we started seeing people from 2 o'clock a.m. going out after that crucial meeting. So it was a tense moment.
Yeah. Let's talk about the time that you've spent covering President Jacob Zuma. It's certainly, you know, normally with covering presidents, you cover their state visits, you cover a lot of interesting things and people that they meet and places that they go, and this, I imagine, has been quite different. Let's not kid. I mean, President Jacob Zuma hasn't had the easiest presidency.
Definitely. As I started covering President Zuma when he was first recalled as a sitting deputy president, that's when I was starting to really get to know him, when he was the president of the ANC at that particular time, leading up to Polokwane moment. I mean, we used to go with him in the region at that particular time, to Mozambique, to other countries that he used to travel to. And again, to find time, because he was not the sitting head of state, to actually know him better. A very good storyteller. And from there, he was obviously appointed as the head of state from 2009. We've been traveling across the globe, and I've been able to really engage him, and such a nice, warm-hearted person, because he makes you feel at ease, especially when we come to those moments where we interview him. So it has been quite an experience to really know the man, a very good storyteller too.
So if I'm going to just ask you to pause there for a sec. Let's get our top news stories this morning. We'll continue our conversation with Tshepo Ikaneng, who, of course, is the presidential correspondent. He's covered President Jacob Zuma for many, many years. We'll continue to talk to him and get his opinions on some of these stories that are breaking this morning. But I think the biggest one at the moment is that the Hawks are carrying out a raid at the residence of the Gupta family in Saxonwold, Johannesburg. Griselda Lewis is still on her way there. We're waiting for her to get up, and she's actually arrived on the scene, and we'll get confirmation from her as to what is going on. As soon as we get her on the line, we'll cross over and talk to her. But right now, let's just take a look at some other stories.